wake up. Well, welcome everyone to the Charter for Compassion's Education Network Forum. I'm Charlie Barker. I'll be the moderator for today's session. We are pleased to have Orleth O'Sullivan, who is with the Wake Up Schools program, and she's going to tell us about the Wake Up Schools program. And but before I introduce her and turn things over to her, I would like, our tradition has been 3 minutes of silent meditation. So if I could invite each of you to take a relaxed, upright position. You may want to turn your video off. You might want to simply close your eyes softly. And I would invite you to take maybe 3 regular breaths and just realize you're breathing in oxygen that sustains our life, and you're breathing out CO2, carbon dioxide, that sustains the plants and our environment around us. And for the next 3 minutes, let's just simply go into silent meditation. Now I would invite you to simply return to your breath, breathing in, and breathing out, breathing in and breathing out. And at the sound of the bell, we can return to our forum. Thank you all. I really appreciate that. And again, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Orla, thank you. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Orla O'Sullivan to each of you. She is the International Coordinator for Wake Up Schools. She's practiced mindfulness in the Plum Village tradition for 24 years and is an ordained member of the Order of Interbeing. She's known for blending poetry and mindfulness practice, developing creative programs for children and teens, and creating sanctuaries of rest for us adults. She's passionate about building happy communities and has founded 6 mindful community groups. And Orlith is an award-winning author and lives in Ireland. And I will turn things over to you, Orlith, and look forward to your story.
Thank you so much, Charles, for that very generous introduction and for the beautiful little sanctuary of rest for ourselves this morning or this afternoon, wherever we are. In my tradition, we have a little like a little poetic phrase that we say when we hear the bell, and it goes, listen, listen. This wonderful sound is calling me back to my true home. So getting to hear the bell twice in the afternoon is such a treat. I feel nourished already. So thank you so much for inviting me to share a little about Wake Up Schools. Maybe I'll begin by sharing about some of the origins of the Wake Up Schools movement. So it was founded by Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, who is well known for being a very engaged peace activist. And Dr. Martin Luther King nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize for his work trying to raise awareness about the war in Vietnam. And he ended up being exiled from Vietnam because he didn't kind of take sides. So everyone presumed he was on the other person's side. And when after the Paris Treaty, which brought the war to an end, he then found himself without a country. And he ended up taking up residence in France as a refugee and creating a place called Plum Village, which began as kind of as a sanctuary for Vietnamese people who had experienced a lot of trauma. So it began by holding the Vietnamese culture in this little pocket in France, and then continued growing and growing. So there have been many retreats for example, American veterans who are suffering from their own trauma of war, Vietnam or otherwise, many retreats for Israeli, Palestinian peoples to learn to take care of themselves and establish stronger communication together. And he has been teaching teachers for such a long time. So since early days in Vietnam, he and a group of other students used to practice activism in whatever way was needed. So whether it was bringing milk to children or helping to move bodies off a street, they would go and simply try and help in whatever form that help could take. So he used to encourage students to go into rural communities in Vietnam, and they would begin simply by going and playing with the children. And over time, there would be a trust that would build up. So they would bring milk and they would help to feed and play with the children. And finally, they would teach the children. And sooner or later, a parent would go, oh, you can teach in my house. You know, you can come inside, it's okay. So then the children would have a teacher. And then over time, the village would go, we should just build a school. So he has been building schools based on love and understanding for a very long time. And after Plum Village was, we just celebrated our 40th anniversary this year. So when Nicolas Sarkozy was president some years ago, he was very interested in people being able to teach kind of a moral life, how to live a moral life in the classroom, but without any mention of religion. He's very concerned that it needed to have no barriers in terms of our own belief systems. And so he said, can anyone teach this? And Wake Up Schools was our response to that. And its first name was Applied Ethics. So Wake Up Schools began as a program called Applied Ethics, where we would go into classrooms and teach about how to live kind of a joined up life, where what we think and how we act and what we do and what we say and how we are together and how we are with the planet all joins up in a way that means that we can live with more freedom and happiness and understanding. So I'm going to share my screen. I might not need to become co-host.
I think you're okay.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen, and this will just show some photos along the way for those of us who are pleasantly visual. So there's nothing particular to miss. If you miss a few slides, that's fine. And then towards the end, I have 2 very short videos to share from different parts of this Wake Up Schools movement. You'll get the sense that it looks very differently around the world. So it takes very different forms. So Thich Nhat Hanh deliberately established it as a very fluid way of supporting mindfulness and education. So it's more common for us to have a set curriculum, to know, this is our curriculum, this is what you learn, and this is how it should be taught. And we're very much this is about establishing your presence. And then we need to figure out how to help you with your presence as a teacher or a cleaner, or however you are involved in the educational ecosystem, and then seeing ways that are appropriate to share it within that system. So I would just play this in the background. The calligraphy that we see here, it reads, "Happy teachers will change the world." And when we were drawing together submissions from over 400 teachers from around the world who practice in the Plum Village tradition. So whether there are some in like pre-kindergarten, in primary school, secondary school, university, forest schools, every different type of environment. And so people wrote in around the world to share this. And as we were compiling this book, we realized happy teachers are already changing the world. So the calligraphy changed from "will change the world" to just change the world. We know happy teachers are already changing the world. And our approach very much begins with the teacher. So often we work with teachers and they come to us like wanting that curriculum straight away. Maybe a principal has funded them to go on this week-long retreat, and they're very conscientious that they need to be able to show up with something when they go back to school. So what we do is we encourage them, first of all, to simply take care of themselves, so that it's not about our curriculum per se. First of all, it's about a teacher taking care of themselves. And I think we know that if one teacher can really take care of themselves well, so that they can live with more freedom and happiness, and less hooked by worry, by fear, by anger, then actually they will help thousands and thousands of people over the course of their career. So this is Thich Nhat Hanh. He's well known for walking meditation, and he teaches people of all ages. The first pillar of Wake Up Schools is embodiment. And this photo that you see is a picture of an early Wake Up Schools retreat in India. And when the delegation was preparing to go to India, our colleagues in India said, should we have a theme? What should it be about? And Thich Nhat Hanh went, teachers. This is going to be about educators and how we can support educators. And for the last 10 years of his life, the focus was very much on supporting educators just where they are. So embodiment is our first pillar. We have 3 pillars that kind of underpin our approach. And what this speaks to is that there is no point in kind of picking up a book and going, breathe in, following your in-breath all the way to the end, and then breathe out. That actually, there's just no point in doing that. So we really encourage teachers to taste the practice for themselves. And sometimes it's described as like a mango, that sometimes we end up spending too much time describing a mango, but actually we can just taste the mango for ourselves. All of us can. And then we can see if we like the mango, what's difficult about the mango, and we can explore from there. So with embodiment, we aim to kind of de-intellectualize our experience a little bit and travel from the level of our head to the level of our heart to really see what is arising in this moment. It's almost always an act of courage to come home to ourselves and to be open to see what's here, for better or worse, and to reconnect as well with our bodies. Our habit of life can be one that we very much live from here upwards. We're fascinated and we really believe all of the thoughts that we think. And when we face an issue, I think we naturally think, I can think my way out of this issue. Like I can, if I just think hard enough. then I can come up with a solution. So we keep kind of dropping down deeper into our body to begin to trust our body's wisdom and to begin to create space so that our own insight can arise without it kind of intellectually kind of following along a ticker tape. We kind of create this space where something else could happen that we don't know yet what that is. So embodiment is where we always start. And this has many different forms. So we try and interrupt our autopilot behavior. There's always a bell on stage. So here's a bell in a retreat in Toronto or in Canada. One of the practices that we really help with teachers to come back to their body is to sound the bell, and we really take refuge in the bell. So there are many things on retreat. It could be a little clock, like a carriage clock that chimes every 15 minutes, or it could be a bell before activities, but we really get used to befriending the bell so that whenever the bell sounds, whether we're working, whether we're speaking, we know, oh, this is just a nice little break for me. I get to come back to my body very deeply and see what this moment is like. So the bell is one way home that we use, but we have many, many different ways home. So teachers learning to reconnect, teachers learning to listen. So to share, in our practice, we call it deep listening and loving speech. And again, this is about de-intellectualizing a little bit, that it's very easy to listen with our intellectual mind, so that when someone is speaking, we kind of just compare, like we're just listening. So if they have an opinion that's, for example, a triangle, let's say an opinion was a shape and it's a triangle, I might be listening and I'm just kind of scanning, wondering, is that a triangle? Is it a dodecahedron? And if it's a triangle, I'll go, oh, you're dead right. If that's my opinion, I'll go, you're absolutely right. And if it's a dodecahedron, I'll go, you're entirely wrong. You're wildly misguided. And that either way, I have the chance to learn nothing. So when we listen intellectually, we deprive ourselves of the ability to learn, irrespective of whether we agree or disagree. So when we deepen our ability to listen, to kind of receive what someone is saying, then we create much more potential for growth in ourselves and in other people. And it's said that we can listen in a way that we can hear what's being said, and we can even hear what's not being said. And I think we've probably all touched that sometimes, maybe when someone is angry, and if we can listen to them very carefully, often we can hear hurt underneath the anger, and we go, oh, so we're not up at the level of their anger. We're not catching it contagiously. We can sense, oh, actually, this has touched something in them that has hurt them. And then our own compassion arises. So we learn to practice this. These are all different teacher retreats. This is deep relaxation in Italy with our wonderful teacher, Adriana Rocco. And again, teachers come on retreats with notebooks in hand, and we go, it's okay to put your notebook down. It's okay not to take notes. You're going to soak in whatever you need to soak in. And so we really prioritize total relaxation on the day of arrival and on the first few days of retreat, so that we can begin to let go of kind of our habit tension, our habit energies. And we practice nourishing our joy, our wholesome seeds everywhere we can. This is a weekend in Japan for educators. And you'll see there's a little tangerine skin in between this laughing circle. And one of the practices that we do is eating meditation. So usually on day 3 or 4 of retreat, we'll give the teachers the opportunity to teach the practice. And so they get to choose, deep relaxation, or taking care of anger, or walking, or eating. So here someone has been teaching people how to do tangerine meditation, and then all their students who are teachers then practice being a student and eating a tangerine, and then they swap over, and then they all get to share, what was it like to be a teacher? What was it like to be a student? Like, what do we notice about sharing the practice? So there's a lot of joy along the way when we can really take care of ourselves. This is the Morning Sun community in New Hampshire. So this is a North American teacher retreat. We really practice being able to be in community together, and coming home, allowing space for our nervous systems to rest, space for silence, and simply learning how to be together in community as our own quality of practice begins to develop. This is Italy. So this is connecting with Mother Earth in Italy. And we really prioritize, like if we can be, really prioritize connecting with Mother Earth and of the beauty that's already here, to being able to connect with that. And part of that is to counteract our negativity bias and our habit of rushing, that we begin to connect with what is already here, all the ways that we're already being supported in this moment, and to allow ourselves to receive deep nourishment. So that from this beautiful scene, these teachers went in all different directions, and there were days where the environment was not so beautiful, not so quiet, and not so peaceful. But that we gather the energy that we need, and that then it's there for us when we're in a place of not peace, place of worry or rushing. So we can draw then on these reserves that we build up between us. So our second pillar of Wake Up Schools is about service. And this is really to do with the why of why we would do any of this. Wake Up Schools is not set up to make a profit. It's not set up, with deliverables. Our purpose is to help people to live with more freedom and happiness, and to suffer less for their whole lives. So, our greatest teaching is our own presence, rather than a 12-step curriculum. Per se. So for example, I thought I would use these as an example. When the pandemic the first waves of lockdown were moving across the globe, we thought, well, actually, the most important thing is not even teachers at this moment. Actually, the most urgent thing are the healthcare workers who are being burnt out. So before we even had this educators workshop, we had a workshop for healthcare workers in Vietnam, where we worked with medical professionals at all levels on the front line with the two main hospitals in Vietnam who were coping with the major onslaught. And doctors, emergency care people shared about their exhaustion, their overwhelm, their despair, their fear. And then we practice mindfulness together. And then that has been made available to 30,000 healthcare workers in Vietnam. So we never shy away from, like, what we want is the practice to meet us exactly where we are. And exactly where we were was in the middle of a pandemic, exhausted and terrified. And so that's where we started. And then a few weeks later, we had that in March. In April, then we began a similar workshop, but for educators. So we held that again, where educators came and shared what their experience was, not too dissimilar to healthcare workers. There was an awful lot on their shoulders. And so we practiced with them. We had this the night before schools reopened in Vietnam, when there was a lot of concern about what it would look like. And we asked the question, can this be a noble semester? Can this next term that we're moving into, can it be a term in our school that opens our heart even more to understanding and to love and to kindness together? So again, we supported teachers just as at these kind of crux moments of things reopening. And this is a picture from Plum Village. One of our we always do walking meditation every day with just some of the words that teachers felt. So we usually come kind of with a fixed mindset about, the problems of our school, our particular environment. We become very aware of the structural frameworks and the limitations that we're working within. And then often by the end of the week, this kind of thing happens, which is that teachers feel rejuvenated and they have hope, that they're sensing that if they can take care of themselves with this quality of service, you're practicing just to practice. Because if one teacher can be peaceful, then actually their family, all of their friends, the people in the shop who they come in contact with, and their classroom, everyone benefits from that. So we take a lot of pressure away and offer a lot of potential for teachers, irrespective of the environment that they're in, that they're working within. So we try and allow, this very kind of freeing spirit of service. And then community, we're all about community, is our third pillar. So community, what makes things sustainable is not to be on our own. So we really encourage people to not be on their own. And it's very attractive to kind of go, I do it for myself. And usually we all come to mindfulness from quite an individual perspective. I think it's really natural. I work with a lot of people who go, I'm distracted, I am angry all the time, I am constantly anxious, whether or not I'm on holiday or in school, so we come to take care of our own suffering. It's very normal to come from an individual perspective. But what makes it sustainable is to walk a pathway together. So, teachers walking together, or a classroom, or a family, or any kind of group that can come together and learn to be together with kindness and love and compassion is what makes it sustainable for the times in our life where we kind of dip. And actually all we need to do is get ourselves to that community, and the community can take care of us. So we might feel fatigue or burnout, and we just need to physically get into the Zoom call or get into the room. And actually this group can hold us just as we are. So this is a short, just a very short clip of the retreat in Canada for happy teachers. And it's sharings from the teachers themselves about how they found the retreat. I don't want to cut off any of this woman's words, so I'll start from there. And if you can't hear the audio, I think I pressed computer audio, so just give me a sign early on if you can't hear audio. So.
I can do this, and I can share it.
Coming here just made me even more eager and hopeful about a new school year, and not to impose anything I've learned on my students, but to bring to them a teacher that is happy, a teacher that can find peace and joy in being in the classroom.
Just going to pause there for 1 second. So to go back to this teacher, so this is one of our happy teachers. And when I talked about the flexibility of Wake Up Schools, she is not formally a teacher at all. She has 2 jobs. One is she's a school bus driver, Exhibit A, and she's also a cleaner in a different school. So she drives a school bus for children with autism. And she also cleans a different school. And so her career is split between these 2 roles, and she brings her happy teacher training to both of these spaces. So as part of her mentoring to become a happy teacher, she wrote, we call it a gatha. It's like a little poem. So kind of like the Bell poem, listen, listen, this wonderful sound is bringing me back to my true home. She has a gatha before she gets on the bus to connect in her body, to connect in her heart, to sense how she's feeling, to connect with her wish to be of service to all the little humans who are going to get on the bus that morning in whatever mood they're in. And so that she can really be there for them for that particular journey that they'll make together. So before she drives the bus every time, she takes time to kind of solidify her presence, to open her heart, to connect with her wish to be of service to others. And then that helps her. It's another type of fuel. It helps her in her own practice each day. And then the same for cleaning, to know what you're doing when you're cleaning, to know the spirit in which you are offering this, that you're creating safer corridors for people to move along, more beautiful environments for people to learn in. Like that's a significant gift. So when we train happy teachers, we do mostly train teachers, but we also train people who are anyone who is part of the ecosystem, the educational ecosystem is included in this training.
A teacher that is happy, a teacher that can find peace and joy.
And then this is an example of a teacher, Ms. Bongetti, and she has one of the calligraphies of Thich Nhat Hanh on her door, so that as children walk in the morning, they read breathe, you are alive. And that's how they begin as they come into the classroom.
In the classroom.
One of our other responses during the pandemic was to organize a family retreat online for all ages. So different people, monastics from different monasteries came together to offer, I think it was 5 or 6 days online, and we had space for younger children, kind of tweens, teenagers had their own space, and adults had their own space. So there were times where we all came together as a community, and then everyone went for their own Zoom rooms so that they could be and explore the practice in appropriate ways. And out of this, the families wanted to stay in contact. So then they formed a monthly mindfulness group, a Sangha, to come together and practice. And it was extraordinary. Like you'd have people who were joining. I remember one family was at the very southernmost tip of the Brazilian rainforest. And they might be like in a huge storm. And another family was in Vermont. And they were practicing outside. And they would turn their laptop so that we could see the fall colors in Vermont. And then there were families across Europe. So it was a very rich experience. And for these children and teenagers, I think particularly, to get to meet teenagers from other places during this time of such isolation, that they were able to share from their hearts and know that they were not alone in their experience. These were some of the sisters. We sing a lot in our practice, so they have some songs in the background. This was the family that I was in. So they were in, many different countries, including Brazil, Ireland. And then we wanted to create a resource where teachers can, a well-read resource, where teachers can learn a little more about how to share the practice. So as I said, this is a book that was written by teachers for teachers. Happy Teachers Change the World. And there are sections in it. So most of the pages are white, but then there are sections that are kind of shaded in gray, which are quite precise guidelines for example, inviting the bell, eating a tangerine, leading deep relaxation. So they give lots of different guidance for teachers who then want to share, with many different variations for sharing, outdoors or indoors, sharing for different ages, or an art project maybe to go along with something. So this became a very practical, this kind of changed our model, because then a lot of our foundational information had been packaged in a way that teachers could really receive. And we call a community group a Sangha, which means kind of friends who practice together on the path. So, the way that our 3 pillars work is to really establish an individual to be embodied, to connect with their heart's wish of what they want to do, and then to go as a Sangha, so to learn how to be in community together in a way that's healthy and that's sustainable for us.
Một cái câu chia sẻ của thầy Thọ, thầy rất là nhớ, em làm đi, ta làm trong sự không mong đợi.
Just to explain a little bit about this. So she mentioned Dr. Havin Tho. He is a senior teacher in our tradition, and he was one of the directors of the Red Cross, and he also co-founded in Bhutan the Gross National Happiness Project. So he and a colleague established in those first years in Bhutan how to look at a whole society in terms of what it means to live well, and it being uncoupled from profit that comes out of it, or kind of economic growth simply for growth's sake. And his principles of gross national happiness are very much kind of infusing. So this is a project that he leads. He teaches between Switzerland and Vietnam. And this is a project that he leads in Vietnam called Happy Schools, where they have been training teachers now for 7 years. And when they began training, I don't even know if they used the word mindfulness, and they might not have used the word Thich Nhat Hanh, simply to allow the practice to flow without any obstacles, which is why we try and allow ourselves to be as secular as possible. So to not create obstacles, because we all have enough obstacles to our own happiness. So in happy schools now in Vietnam, the government have become really interested in why the schools are doing so well and why the teachers are thriving, and they want to kind of begin to scale it at this point. So it's one of my kind of, I love this project. I love the work that they do.
Môi trường hạnh phúc là xây dựng mối quan hệ giữa thầy và thầy, giữa trò và trò.
Cái sự kết nối cực kỳ là vững chắc.
And my final clip for us is some of our work in Africa. So this is specifically in Uganda. We led a delegation there 4 years ago, and about 400 teachers practiced together. And there was a filmmaker from Holland who traveled with the delegation, and he's creating a film called Happy Teachers Change Africa. So he gave us a little kind of sneak preview of some of the interviews that he did with some of the teachers that were there. One of the big areas of focus was specifically around violence. That and this is a broad brush stroke, so this is not fine-tuned enough, but in general, there has been culturally the sense that in order to raise a child well, you'll need to beat the child at some point, that beating a child is part of raising a good child. And Uganda have been exploring how they can begin to raise awareness among adults. So, for example, among married couples where there may be violence, and then there may be violence towards their children, and then the child goes into school and there's also violence from the teacher to the child. And they are beginning to have like these beautiful heart-opening conversations about how we can take care of our habit energy, of these things that we don't even question in our mind, and begin to question our thinking and come back to our body and find ways to live with more freedom and more harmony together. So this is a little snippet of the teachers.
At one moment I was like, if life would be like this all the time, it would be so beautiful.
It's so beautiful because it makes your mind, relax.
So it makes my body calm, it makes my life calm, it makes my environment calm to live.
You find you have never felt yourself the way you're feeling yourself.
Be calm, meditate, be yourself. Embrace things around you, the nature around you. Be present.
It balances you. You find that you are actually at home and at peace.
I have arrived home and I'm very happy that I got the solution of coming back home.
No, I really love this present moment. No, the person who taught us this, they did a wonderful thing.
That's why I've told the teachers, let's go to Mbarara. Let's go and hear it. Let's go and see it. Let's go and feel it.
I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I am solid, I am free, I am solid, I am free. In the ultimate I dwell, in the ultimate I dwell. I thank you very much, Plum Village.
So with the what it looks like in terms of this walking a pathway with Plum Village, we usually have two kind of strands. So the first is called level 1, which is usually a 1-week retreat that we offer specifically to educators. So educators, it's usually social workers, many other people in the ecosystem come together and learn to practice for 1 week. And we've tried loads of different interventions. You know, we've gone into schools and taken over schools. We've done, you know, for example, an 8-week course in a school. But the thing that we've found that's most sustainable is to have one teacher have quite a profound experience. And then that generates a lot of energy for them to go back to their environment and begin to look at it with fresh eyes and then sustain their practice. So to help teachers sustain their practice, we have 2 happy teachers sanghas. So they meet online once a month. And people from, well, from Brazil, North America, across Europe. There's a fabulous teacher in the Philippines who sets his alarm for 12 midnight and joins us once a month. So there are teachers all around the world. And obviously we're trying to create more in more friendly time zones so that we do no harm. But so that we create these communities where we come together, we practice, we listen to a little bit of teaching, and then we share from our heart the joys and the challenges of our practice life and our teaching life. So that's kind of level 1 and a regular monthly experience. And then level 2 is when a teacher kind of really wants to share the practice in a more overt way in their environment, that we would do a year-long mentoring where a group of teachers would be with a Dharma teacher, and they might meet once a month, or it might have a different schedule. The group kind of co-creates their space. And then they kind of really dive into their own practice and also their curriculum to see, well, how can my curriculum be like a bell of mindfulness? How can my maths or my social emotional learning, whatever it is, how can that actually be the thing that helps us to come back, to notice this moment, to be aware of ourselves, each other, the planet, and to figure out ways to live with more love and understanding. So we encourage teachers to play a really long game. You know, it's much more than them getting a 12-point curriculum and going in. We really want them to live a life that has more happiness and less suffering. Yeah, and to know that happiness is possible. Happiness is possible. So I feel that's more than enough from me. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope the technology bit of it went okay for you. And yeah, I'm really open to, obviously this is why we do what we do, is to create circles together. We're a circle of rectangles, and to see if there are reflections or sharings or our own insight or questions that have come up, then this is our space. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Orla. And I would just suggest that perhaps maybe you raise your hand if you have a comment or question for Orla.
Great. And then the chat is also there if people, I know that sometimes
exactly.
Yeah, the microphone is not on our side, so you're also very welcome to use the chat.
One question I have, or maybe to get things started, is I know the charter is very interested in compassion cultivation training from cradle to the grave, and I think that we have, the charter has embraced several programs for, you know, K through 12, pre-K, K through 12, and on up to old people. But I think that one of the things that we really are interested in looking at is how to get to parents of infants and toddlers early on before they enter the more official school experience. And having a happy teacher, if I come from a happy parenting, is a beautiful thing. And we know that that isn't always the case. So I'm just curious, my question, long story, but question is, how is Happy Wake Up Schools looking at, you said something about social workers. How is Wake Up Schools going into the homes, let's say, with the parents and the infants and toddlers?
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's a great question. Yeah, so in a few different ways. So one is that we encourage a whole school approach, because the our sense of independence is quite delusional. So we're very aware that actually, if the whole school is in it together, then that's extreme. There's real potential for change. And often it comes with one teacher, and then it becomes 3, and then 8, and then the whole school. Like we have one, the school for the American school in London. 3 grown-ups started practicing together, and after 8 years, it was embedded in their curriculum. And it just grew. And like we have that kind of timeline that we're fine. Like there's no over, you can go in too early, and then you can actually close doors that might not be reopened for 5 years, because someone will say, oh, we tried that once and it didn't work. So we'd much rather allow things to grow naturally. So when a school is involved, we always try and create opportunities for parents to practice. Many parents come on retreat. The reason that we did the International Family Retreat during the pandemic was that every parent had become a teacher overnight, whether or not they wanted to be a teacher. That anyone with younger children had this extraordinary burden put on them of trying to figure out how to supplement what the teacher was trying to do at that time. And also, I think as well, we're trying to create groups where parents can be together. So for example, in Ireland, there's a parents and toddlers group, which is a mindfulness sangha, but your child can be screaming, wandering, asking questions. It's just for young parents of young children to be together. So we're trying to create flexible spaces that meet parents where they are, because the idea that people will be able to get on a plane usually and go somewhere on retreat for a whole week is not always sane as an idea. Doesn't always live up to expectation. All of the Plum Village monasteries have family retreats every summertime, and they are retreats that are open to all ages. So you can read like Babe in Arms, and then there's a children's program and a teenager program, which creates space for the parents to have a little bit of time for themselves during the day. And many children, like I've met many children who have grown up like they're in their 20s now, but they've grown up through that program where it was a place that they just kicked around and played. And then later on, they realized there's actually quite a lot going on here. This is about how to live my life. And so we try and find appropriate ways. And then on the Plum Village app, there's meditations for children, there's relaxations. So we try and make a lot of stuff barrier free as well, in terms of needing to travel because it's on your phone, or there being any cost associated with it as well. And in the practice, like children practice naturally, really easily. It's our grown-up mind that gets them out of mindfulness. So allowing the parents, creating spaces where we can practice kind of for the children. So I run a mindfulness group in Dublin for the last 8 years called Sunness, which is the Irish word for happiness. And the idea is that a child just needs to bring a grown-up, can be any grown-up. So if two children just need a grown-up with them. So if my family, if I'm not lucky, if no one in my family is interested, but my friend has like a parent or a grandparent who's interested, we just bring them along. And then everyone learns to practice together. So we play, we sing, we draw, we eat, we walk, we connect with nature. We share about our fears. Every Halloween, we do a practice called Boo, where we explore what is it that makes us scared. And we bring our fears into the light, create a huge fear collage of everything we're afraid of, and we talk about it. And it is transformational for a child to see a grown-up in their life learning how to take care of their own anxiety, their own habits, their own boredom, and learn to come back to their bodies. So there's lots of kind of different ways that we do, and there are different community groups in different countries have a kind of a children's area for that now. We try lots of different things, and we encourage as well families to make up their own, to you figure out what works for you. If your children are very active, then find something that's to do with moving or racing or being outdoors. Or if they're very artistic, then you can do it through drawing together. So
Great.
many different ways.
Yeah, thank you. I think Vicky has a question or a comment.
Hi. Yeah, thank you. I've been working with volunteering with Charter for the past 5 years, but I have 18 years of teaching experience. And Miss O'Sullivan, you don't know how many times I just teared up through this presentation. So thank you for that. I have two questions. Through Charter, I've gotten to know Brother Phil Lane Jr., and he does Our Moment of Choice. There's a book about how we can create a new generation called the Seventh Generation. And he's also taught us how to have talking, learning, and healing circles. So could you tell us a little bit more about your laughing circles, if I heard that one correctly? And then the second one is I'm trying to get back into the education system. I'm trying to bring in SEL, but I'm also working on reframing the history curriculum. And so I wanted to know if your 1 year of mentorship kind of helped address history and stories of domination. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Oh, two amazing questions. So the circles, the circle happened to be laughing, but it could have been doing other things. They might have been crying as well 10 minutes later. So we create in Wake Up Schools, we call them circle sharing. So we literally form a circle, and the purpose of the circle is to understand that being together is a doorway into healing for us. That probably 95% of our suffering comes from us being in relationship, and it's very intellectually, we can think, I'll do it myself, and actually being on our own is a very controlled environment. It can be much easier to be on our own, and if we get into a disagreement with someone, it's very easy to walk away and slam a door and go like, I don't need you. And so these circles remind us over and over and over again that if 95% of our suffering comes from being in a relationship, then 95% of the healing can also come from being in relationship. So we learn to sit together for all kinds of reasons. So one, for example, is to do with wisdom. And we literally practice with the phrase, I know that the knowledge that I possess is not changeless, absolute truth. Which actually, for a very intellectual human, is quite big to get your head around, to really know that your knowledge is not changeless, absolute truth. Like you haven't reached the be all and end all. And that by being in circle, you are opening yourself up to other people's wisdom, other people's experience, and allowing your heart to open and their heart to open, and then to see what happens. And so we do, often there is laughter, and often there, people bring the heaviest of suffering that can feel like granite, can feel like cement inside us, something that we might intellectually think this has always been there and it's never going to change. And we learn to sit with it and to notice it as an organic thing, that actually, even though it feels very fixed, actually it's not fixed. Actually, we can, if we think of it as a seed, we can shine sunlight on it that it might never have received before. There might be gentle rain, there might be nutrients that we can add to the soil that actually over time will begin to change that seed. And it will manifest under different conditions and in a different way over time, so that we really begin to grow our heart's garden, is how it's sometimes described. So this reliance on Sangha is something that we practice with through our whole lives, that intellectually we feel very independent, and that's just not true. And we know that often we can move much more quickly if we just did it ourselves. But so we also allow ourselves to just go more slowly, because we're going to learn to flow as a river together. And we have this practice where we literally try and pool our wisdom and see how people are sensing, what should we do next? And we keep listening and sharing and listening and sharing. And it's funny, when you mentioned the word listening in your question, I was thinking of Uganda, because when they first brought up this kind of realization of violence just kind of, and it's kind of awakening to the violence that's already there that just seems so normal, perfectly normal. That's what you need to do. And we have this, whether it's the violence of perfectionism, of being so hard on yourself, which is kind of quite accepted at times. So we have all different like violence, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, whether it's acceptable or not acceptable. But when they looked at this question of beating, and they asked the community, like, well, what can we do? And what the people said was that no one felt that they were in a position to try and teach anyone anything. They were like, I am not going to stand in front of you and tell you what to do, what to believe, how to behave. Like no one felt. But they said, what I think I could do is maybe listen. So maybe what we can begin with is listening. And Uganda began by creating listening circles, where all they did was listen. They listened to a man who was a husband who beat his wife, who had grown up from a 5-year-old child who had been beaten by his parents, beaten in school, grew up, and had the advice, first thing you should do when you get married is beat your wife to establish really good relationships, and then that will be really clear how things should flow. And, so this person had a chance to be listened to unconditionally. And we say, we listen not to even agree or disagree. We listen to receive and to understand, and then to sense, what happens next. So in these circles, we don't get into kind of conversations. Sometimes people drop questions into the circle, but it doesn't need to be answered. So sometimes just asking a question, it kind of is answered or it's healed just in the sunlight of mindfulness that we bring it. Just by saying something out loud changes that thing. So we know that we don't need to treat each other as self-help projects. We don't need to treat ourselves as a self-help project. So we can bring anything to the circle and share it. And for example, if Charles shared something that touched me very personally, like if he said, I don't know, a personal experience, and I was like, twing, resonance, I might share, that touched me really deeply. And my experience is this. So it's not advice. We don't get into, what you should do? You should read a book. You should go on retreat. You should go do something else. We go, this was my experience with the issue of having a parent who died when I was a teenager. What I found, what helped me was this, or what didn't help me was this. And we just practice sharing from our hearts. So when we share with children, we do that in exactly the same way. The children could go, I'm so angry with grown-ups for doing such rubbish to this planet, just really cross. And you can see like their parent has this instinct to go, buck up, it'll be okay. And we go like, they don't need to buck up. It's okay to be furious, like that's okay. And we're gonna learn how to take care of our anger so that there's actual more space, so that we'll know what's the next right step. Like what's one thing we could do today that's helpful? So that even in like our smallest action, our smallest thought, we can sense our own agency and our own wisdom and love can shine through. So that's the circle bit of it. And then the second part of your question, what was the second question?
Does the 1-year mentorship kind of address like history of violence and such?
Yeah, so because it's international, and different people mentor and different groups kind of co-create a space. So absolutely, the potential is there to say, what I am wrestling with as a teacher is I want to, and it could be anything, I want to raise it all to the ground and bring in freshness and more sanity and truth to this curriculum that I've been told to teach. And again, what we kind of specialize in is creating spaces for people to explore and create and develop something together. So a teacher can use the level 2 mentoring space to do that. But also what it will build, I think, is the muscles to help do that in a classroom environment or in an environment with teachers where you're thinking, I'd really like to raise this issue. And I think that so many, like the shutters will just come down as soon as I say it. So how to, Thich Nhat Hanh like lived through 2 wars and almost everything he built was bombed or murdered along the way. And he really is a specialist in resilience of his heart and of having this compassionate action and of knowing a way to flow through, insurmountable odds at times. So yeah, that's it. We kind of approach, but it's more to do with kind of how you take care of your own heart, even before kind of going near the curriculum, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thanks, Lola. We
I'm
have
going to intervene here because there are a couple things in the chat.
Right.
I don't know if you saw them, Charlie. One is, are there going to be any retreats in North America that people could attend?
And so we just had one in Morning Sun community last month. We normally do have maybe 2 level 1 retreats each year. Deer Park Monastery in Escondido in California. So we have 3 different monasteries. So in California and Mississippi, and in Blue Cliff in New York. And so retreats work in 2 different ways. So some are specific retreats for educators, or if there's a regular retreat for adults, what we can do is create the circle sharing will be educators and people who are interested in mindfulness for education, so that we can kind of gather people together who in an affinity group who have that. So often now when we have regular retreats for grownups, there'll be a BIPOC family, there'll be an LGBTQ plus family, so that we try and create spaces for people to connect more. So that's another way of doing it, is that we can contact the monastery if you're interested in doing a level 1 retreat, and seeing if they can create an educator space. So retreats are all on, I'll put it in the chat, wakeupschools.org. It's probably /retreats or events. And all of our monthly sanghas, we're on summer break at the moment, but we start again in September. And you'll see at the moment there's an online retreat based out of our center in Germany. So it's a retreat in English. For teachers, but it's for teachers with some experience of the practice, and that's coming up later this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And I guess on the website, we can learn how we might apply for a retreat to come to our particular area of the country.
Oh yes, that's the other thing, is that if the charter is interested in, I meant to say this earlier, if the charter is interested in, supporting teachers, then when we do that very naturally, we'll just go, well, we'll just have a retreat just for you, that's fine. So like Ireland asked Plum Village a few years ago, we were saying, can we just come to you on retreat? And they were like, sure, we'll have Ireland week. Just come on over. And so, and it was so influential in terms of building community in Ireland. Because often when we have retreats in Ireland a few times a year, but mostly we spend all our time delivering and facilitating retreats. So it's a lot of work to do them. And actually we don't have time to sit around and chat together because we're organizing the retreat. So actually getting to go to France, maybe 80 or 90 of us went, and we just went and we were just held perfectly there. And it was phenomenal for our own well-being, for our own communication and healing. And also for releasing this energy for kind of working together and creating things together. It was this huge boost for Ireland. It's fabulous. So we totally do that. We just need to be invited, and then we go, okay, we'll go do that.
That's great. You and Marilyn need to talk after this.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
I think that Tamia has had her hand up for quite some time.
She has, Tamia.
Sure, no problem. So it's the first time I'm hearing about this. I'm also a teacher and I'm kind of interested. And I would like to hear if probably some of you have only been on this kind of retreat or have already implemented some things in your school or in your classroom or in your life. So if you could share, or if nobody, then maybe Ms. O'Sullivan could tell us about some feedback that she knows from teachers who attended. Yeah, and also, if I would be interested in this, what would be the next step, like going to a retreat or joining some online circle? Yeah, those are my questions.
I'm going to give a little space in case anyone does have experience. And then I'm going to jump in. So, teachers retreat. So it's very similar to a non-teachers retreat in many ways, in that this focus on embodiment, of coming home to our bodies, of beginning to release tension, of learning to stop, to interrupt our habit momentum and come fully into this moment. So present moment, wonderful moment is one of the things we practice. And although it's very kind of compared to other monasteries, there isn't a huge amount of time spent on the cushion. So we're quite, in terms of formal practice, we might do 45 minutes in the morning. So you wake up, a beautiful bell goes in the monastery and everyone gets up and goes into the meditation hall, and we sit for about 30 minutes. There might be like sitting, walking. And then there's usually some kind of exercise like yoga or qigong or stick exercise to allow your body to wake up. And then, and then the next kind of formal sit would be in the evening. We do sitting before bedtime. And meanwhile, there's a Dharma talk along the way. So there would be teaching for about an hour. We do walking meditation together every day, no matter what else is going on. We always sit and walk. And then the thing that makes it kind of very Plum Village is that actually we try to practice 24/7. So it's not down to 30 minutes morning and evening. Actually, how we walk is our practice. How we chop the vegetables is our practice. How we eating meditation. We do circle sharing. So how we listen, how we share from our heart, so many affinity groups would form during that retreat as well. So the actual day program is quite spacious. You've plenty of time to have tea, to sit together, to enjoy the moment, to enjoy silence. And then we have like different panel sharings on different aspects of either the practice or the practice in a school, where people would share, for example, this was my experience in university. This was my experience bringing this into my, fourth graders. So you would hear from teachers and their lived experience of what's going on. And we try to nourish two things at the same time. So one, we deliberately nourish our wellness, all of the kind of different seeds that we know nourish our well-being. So that are things like, there are things like relaxation, ease, happiness, joy, wonder, appreciation of beauty, kindness, gratitude, compassion. All those good things we know are good for the human heart. So we deliberately touch all of those seeds. And at the same time, we don't ignore the seeds that might be unwholesome in that they cause suffering to ourselves, to our loved ones, to the planet. So, anger, fear, judgment, discrimination, all of the ways that that block our heart's connection. So we really create space to kind of take care of those, to notice what's coming up. So while there's a lot of spaciousness in terms of the program, we're always deliberately doing these things. Many moments we come back to our body, come back to the moment, sense what's there, and then we try and figure out, well, how can we take care of what's there, for better or worse? And so teachers have a chance to share, and we usually learn some different songs as well along the way. Singing is a very embodied form of practice, so it's very difficult to be not in the moment when you're singing. And it's something that as grown-ups we could be, often the joy of singing has been taught out of us. We've been told, you actually can't sing, so you should just mouth the words, like your voice is not welcome here. And many of us, singing kind of creates quite childlike anxiety in us, that we think, well, what if I don't get the right notes? And for us, singing is just, it's another bell. It's another way of coming into our bodies just as we are. So we have different songs in many different languages that touch on ways to be here, ways to take care of our anger, ways to flow, goodbye songs, hello songs. So we do a little bit of singing as well along the way. And what I hear from teachers is, well, what I see first is that by day 2, the shape of people's bodies tends to have changed. So I can tell what day it is on a retreat, because there's an arriving, which is a little bit like this, often holding a notebook. And then over the next 2 days, there's this opening and letting go that happens, where I feel the teachers are simply more here in their bodies with more softness and more kindness, potential for more softness and more kindness. And they're really starting to slow. You know, I think we come in with the sense of like, what does success look like? What are my lesson outcomes? And, you know, and then over the first couple of days, there is this dissolving that happens where we begin to sink deeper, to sense a deeper wisdom that actually by me taking really good care of myself, not only does the teaching happen more effectively and skillfully and more successfully, but actually the most important thing is for me to take really good care of my life, like my life, my family's life, my happiness, and that is very contagious for our teachers. So one of our senior teachers, the guy who co-founded the Mindfulness and Education Network, Richard Brady, so he was a maths teacher for 20 something years. He's retired now and teaches in wake up schools. He's an amazing teacher, but he described meeting a student maybe 15 years after the student had left, 10 or 15 years. And Richard taught maths. The student ended up in the World Bank. And so they bumped into each other and Richard was like, oh, how are you doing? He's like, oh yeah, World Bank, that's where I work. And he was like, how are you doing? And he's like, oh yeah, good. Like I've retired. But what I do now, more than full time probably, is I help teachers, you know, think or wake up schools and practice mindfulness and practice being there. And what the student said was, yeah, that's what I remember. I remember you teaching me how to wash the dishes. And he said, I remember you saying like, don't wash the dishes just to get the dishes washed. Like, see if you can enjoy the water, enjoy the bubbles, wash the dishes just to wash the dishes, to really be there for that moment of your life. And Richard kind of left that conversation going, wow, like 10 or 15 years. And that's what he remembered of what I taught him. It wasn't the quadratic equations, like it wasn't the calculus. He remembered how to wash dishes and to be there for that moment of his life and not throw that moment away. So on retreat, I think we begin to soak into, we come in at the level of our curriculum and how to deliver it well with grace and dignity and skillfully. And then we soak into a deeper understanding of, this is people's lives. Like this is our life. Like there's something even more important than maths, which I know, like might not. I'm just saying it's our life. And that we have the potential to offer the gift of non-fear to people during a time of great fear, to offer peace to people during a time of not phenomenal peace and harmony. Like, and that is incredibly important. And if we can offer it to ourselves first, you know, it will naturally be in the atmosphere of the classroom. Even if we never say it out loud, we change things. So one teacher said that what they changed after retreat was how they walked into a classroom, sensing their footprints in each step, and then how they picked up. So one of the many things Thich Nhat Hanh is famous for is how he wiped a whiteboard. He often wrote out notes while he was teaching, and he would wipe the whiteboard. So often, like someone would have forgotten to wipe the whiteboard before he came in. So there's like loads of stuff on the whiteboard he needs to do. He would just like, the peace with which that man cleaned a whiteboard was inspiring and very contagious. And so what this teacher left with the retreat is, he was like, I'm going to clean the whiteboard in that way. And he began doing it. And what he realized, because it was the first thing he did when he came into the classroom, what he realized was that the students noticed something different about the energy of him as he walked in and as he cleaned without any hurry to begin, just cleaning, just to clean. And that they naturally then began to settle because there was something different in the room. So there are very practical effects that come out of this, of caring for ourselves, of kind of protecting ourselves from burnout, from fury, with really challenging times where we would normally, raise our voice. So like one teacher began a happy lunchtime that she said, well, what I can do is, no one in the school was interested in this. So she was like, not going to even tell anyone about it. I'm just going to make a sign that says happy lunchtime, put it up on a door. I'm going to have a flower and a candle and a lunch and me, and that's going to be my happy lunchtime. And of course, what happens is, someone looks around the window, around the door and goes, what you doing? She's like, oh, having a happy lunchtime. We're like, well, what you do? Just come in and enjoy our lunch. We're like, can I have happy lunchtime? Yeah, you can. So then two kids and then two teachers, and suddenly the classroom isn't big enough. They have to have happy lunchtime in the hall because loads of people are interested in happy lunchtime. So it can look like anything. Many teachers do it as they say, people will be so terrified that I'm trying to convert them to do it, or that it's an add-on, that teachers have to learn something more, like it can feel exhausting. So they go, well, what about just deep relaxation? Why don't I offer deep relaxation on a Thursday evening, that, you know, for 30 minutes, we just lie down and you can fall asleep, nothing has to happen, and I lead a deep relaxation. So it can look like very different things. But what they know, I think, is that they're not alone, that there are possibilities that they didn't realize were possibilities, and that they already have so much potential to take care of themselves and to take care of their classroom without ever saying the word mindfulness, saying wake up schools, Thich Nhat Hanh, and that nothing else has to change, that it meets us where we are simply by the energy that we generate, the person who we are, how we listen. So there's one, and then I'll stop answering the question.
The question was raised. Cece had to leave, but she was asking the question if the book is in Spanish.
It is in Spanish.
Okay.
I wish I could remember the title. Felices Educadores, Change the World.
Okay.
So it's available in Spanish, in French, in Vietnamese. And actually, it's in two. It's in Spanish and it's in Catalan. So depending on her Spanish, she meets us just where she is.
Yeah, we have a little bit of time left, and I do want to give Marilyn time to let everyone know what's coming up next on the EdNet Forum. But is there a final question or comment or all left before we turn it over to Marilyn?
There is a comment, and it's from Sharon Grady, who is a team member of our education sector, and she apologizes that she's having technical difficulties, so we can't see her or hear her, but she wants to thank you, Orla, and she's from Ireland, a bit out of Dublin, if I remember correctly, and would love to see you and get involved in some way. She teaches primary school in County Meath.
Fabulous. Hi, Sharon. And I just did a whole schools course, a happy schools course in Screen School in Westmeath over the last 6 weeks. So it's been very joyful. And it would be great to be involved. So the easiest way is to sign up for our newsletter, because that tells us everything that's coming up, any opportunity to explore. So you can sign up for our newsletter at the bottom of our wakeupschools.org website. At the bottom of that. And I know that coming up, we'll have Happy Teachers Sanghas. So there's one that's at 5 o'clock once a month in Ireland, for Ireland. It's 12 noon Eastern time in the States. And so we'll be reconvening that in September. So that gives you a good taste of the practice. And meanwhile, I'm trying to sense when the next level 1 retreats might be. We used to always have one at New Year's, but there wasn't one during the pandemic, obviously. So we're waiting to see what level 1 retreats. And we had a retreat in Ireland a few years ago for teachers as well, which was very beautiful. So yeah, I think we start just by connecting, finding out what's possible, and I'm really happy as well if there's where you are, if there's any. Sometimes we go, could you come in and just explain a little bit, or actually not, just lead a practice so that we can just taste the mango for ourselves. That we're really happy to support people in that way as well. Sometimes teachers feel it's the right time. I know 2 or 3 people in a school, we could meet together in the morning on a Wednesday before school starts for 15 minutes. We could do that. So whatever is possible where you are, really happy to support that.
Great. Thank you so much, Orla. It's just been really wonderful. And I know I speak for everyone to say thank you for telling us this beautiful story that's continuing, and we want to be a part of it. So thank you. And Marilyn, I'm going to turn things over to you now.
Yeah, Svetlana has said there was a question earlier that I'm curious about too. What's the next step for a person who's new to this to get started, join the Sangha, or to go to a retreat? And Orla, before you answer that, I mean, one of the things is that the charter is very much an international organization, just as all of the work that you've been involved in. So it might be interesting for us to continue a conversation about how might it be possible for us to have a Sangha through the Charter for Compassion. My guess is it would have to be two, only because of the world clock. We're finding that one early in the morning, one little later in the afternoon, so that we can reach both sides of the world. So let's have that conversation. And why don't you take a minute or two to answer Svetlana, and then I'll let people know what's coming up next.
Fantastic. That's very inspiring. So while there are 2 online teacher sanghas, there are thousands of sanghas worldwide, which are all community-based groups. There are lots that practice online. So what we're looking for are sanghas in the Plum Village tradition. So let me show Plumline. I'm going to type in .org. But Plumline gives a list of all of the online sanghas that they know about. So it's kind of a centralized hub. But the chances are that in your area, there is already a sangha that practices in the Plum Village tradition as well. So one is that you can go to that to simply begin to enjoy your own practice without it being specifically to do with other teachers. And the same with retreats. So we have retreats for teachers and we have retreats for everyone, for families and for all adults. And so let me see, it depends on where you are. So Plum Village is in France. So all of these are plumvillage.org. Actually, if I give you plumvillage.org, it links to all the other centers. We have centers in Australia, in Singapore. We have teacher sanghas in Singapore, Plum Village, Thailand, European Institute of Applied Buddhism in Germany, and then France, 3 in North America. We just started Happy Teachers Brazil. We're starting Happy Teachers Netherlands. So Happy Teachers galore. Yeah, and I'd be so happy to support anything we can do. Thank you so much, Susan.
Okay, thank you. Svetlana, where are you from in the world? Where are you located?
I'm in Minnesota.
Minnesota, okay. Well, then, hopefully we'll be able to do something with Orla and her colleagues. I want to share with you real quickly, because I see the time is a little short, but people who have been coming to these sessions know that the first and the third Thursdays of the month are our EdNet Forums. And our next one, August 4th, is with the new 3 Rs. This is a group, Vicki, that you might be very interested in, because it's a group where missing pages of history are part of everything. But at the same time, it's an online session, and they do live sessions as well. A group of educators from New York area, New York City in particular. And in order to participate, a child has to come with a parent or a relative or a friend. And so it's a series of workshops. They happen on Saturday, so we're really excited to have them with us. And then on August 18th, this is a rescheduling of a session on Awaken Schools, and it's with Lisa Miller from Columbia University, and we're really excited about that. Lisa has written a number of books, but 2 that are really very interesting is one on the Awakening School movement, but then also the spiritual child. So keep that in mind. And we have a few more minutes, and I want to say this is a charter website that you see in front of you and the navigation bar. And there's 2 things that happened today that I think you all who haven't done this might be very interested in. One is that under communities, we have something called the Map of Co-Creators, and then we have Grassroots Wisdom book. And we were sharing a lot of grassroots wisdom today, but there's something really miraculous, I think, about our map of co-creators. We've had this up now for about 3 weeks, and it is an opportunity for every person who has a passion about compassion in almost any level to begin the process of connecting with one another. And you can see that we've had just about 300 people who have registered in these few weeks, but the colors indicate your area of expertise, your area of concern, your area of interest, and you choose one of those, you sign up, and you have secondary interests. And it would be wonderful if we got everyone who is involved in any project. This might be on our website, but this map is for everyone to connect to. And here's the best feature of the map. And that is, I come to the map and I say, I have an idea, or I have a program I want to share, or I have a question I want answered. And you say, okay, education, here's what I'm going to do. And you can decide which one of those you want, but I'm just going to look for people who have that same passion that I have. So everyone else is filtered out. You have an opportunity to find out who these people are, what their interests are, and you can select people from all different places in the world. This person is interested in adult transformational education. And you know, I'd say, geez, I'd like to have a conversation with that person, share my idea. I don't know if you noticed this, but the minute that I selected them, you got send invitation. And so you can communicate with that individual. And so we want everyone to take advantage of the map and to make it your own, and to make it your organization's own property as well. So do take a look at that. And I think Merida, when she sends out this recording, you could send out the link to the map as well.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And there's a whole page of instructions that go with it, and it's secure. And if you go back in and you want to change your mind, you have to deselect yourself and start all over again, because it's a way to add security so no one can hack the map. Okay, thank you all so much. We hope we will see you the next time. There's one more message. Oh, okay, that is your email address, so everyone can contact you. Thank you for coming. We hope to see you the next time, and bring a friend.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Bye.
Bye. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.